G'day guys, welcome back to Ados the Great YouTube channel. So guys, in today's video, I'm going to be ranking each team on how I think they did in the off season. So that's bringing in new players, new coaches, all that sort of fun stuff. So the ranking, I'm going to jump over to the tier list maker and do one. So there's going to be like A, B, C, D, and E. And yeah, we're going to be ranking the teams in those sort of categories. So yeah, guys, we're going to jump over there. Obviously, A is going to be the best, E is going to be the worst, and yeah. So basically, guys, I know my opinions are going to be slightly different to what you guys reckon, and just remember, these are just my opinions. So if you guys do disagree, I'd love to have a chat down in the comment section with you on why you disagree. But anyway, guys, we're going to jump over to tier list maker now, and you're going to see my opinions on where I think each team ranks. So let's jump over there now. I will have my phone up with all the player movements and stuff like that. Just, so obviously I know the main ones like Adam Reynolds to the Broncos, Dan Gagai to the Knights, Souths fans, so there's two just from the Rabbitohs. But yeah, guys, we're going to jump over. We're going to check that out. So I'll see you in tier list maker. All right, guys, so here we are, tier list maker. We're going to go like the normal alphabetical order, so Broncos, Raiders, Bulldogs, Sharks, you know the drill. So, yes, we're going to start off straight away. We're going to jump straight into the Broncos. Yeah, the Broncos are probably one of the better recruiting teams in 2022, bringing in probably the most notable names: Adam Reynolds, Kurt Capewell, Brenko Lee. Apologies about the vibration there. Corey Jensen was a pretty good signing for the Cowboys. Ryan James from the Raiders. Then you got Billy Walters and trying to remember Jordan Pereira. Yes, Jordan Pereira. And then they did lose some notable players. So you've got like John Asiata, Xavier Coates, Anthony Milford, Brody Croft's another one. But they definitely are an A tier for me. They were, I believe that there's probably about two or three more teams up in the A tier. I definitely think the Broncos were one of the better recruiting teams in 2022. Next up, we've got the Raiders, who brought in Jamal Fogarty and Adam Elliott and Nick Cotric. So not bad pickups for them, but in 2022, they have lost a fair few players. So Ryan James, Saliva Havili, Bailey Simonson. They lost Curtis Scott to Dynamis Louis, who aren't the biggest names for them. Like Curtis Scott was pretty big loss, but George Williams obviously left in 2021. So for the Raiders, they've done all right. Like bringing in Adam Elliott and Jamal Fogarty and Nick Cotric, pretty good, but I don't think they really broke the internet with their signing. So I'm going to give them a C grade. Like, wasn't the best signings they could have got, but also wasn't the worst. Like Adam Elliott, definitely a good player. Nick Cotric, while he didn't have the best seasons at the Bulldogs, he's still a good player. Jamal Fogarty was amazing at the Titans last year, so I think the Raiders got a pretty good steal with him. But yeah, they have lost a few notable players as well, so that's why I haven't really got them up in the B tier. Next up, we've got the Bulldogs, who probably are arguably were the best recruiting team in 2022, bringing in Josh Adokar, Matt Burton, Brett Naden, Paul Vaughan, Matt Duffy. You've got Braden Burns, who's not the biggest signing, but still a good one for depth. Tavita Pangai Jr. They've got a few other sort of names around the club too, but they're probably the most notable ones. They did lose a lot of players, losing Nick Meaney, Will Hopewadi, obviously Adam Elliott, Nick Cotric we just talked about, Chris Smith, Dylan Napa. Realistically, that's probably the biggest names they've lost. So I'm definitely giving them an A tier. They were very active in recruiting in 2022. So I think they've put together a very good team. And yeah, it's only up from here for the Bulldogs. So A for them for sure. The Sharkies, another good team that recruited well in 2022. So you've got Dale Finucane and Nico Hines for the Melbourne Storm. Cameron McInnes, who did miss all of 2021 with an ACL injury. So that does make me think, is he going to be the same McInnes we saw on St. George Illawarra and the Rabbitohs, because he did have a stint there. Matty Cavallo, another very, very, very good signing. Very underrated player from the Sydney Roosters. So the Sharkies have recruited very well, in my opinion. Their losses are quite notable as well. They've lost Aaron Woods, Sean Johnson, Chad Townsend, but he did go to the Warriors anyway in 2021. Will Chambers, not really that big of a deal there. He didn't really do much for them. Josh Dugan, who retired, but I still think they're probably around that. I'd like to. I'm going to give them an A tier for now. I think they're definitely up there. They could potentially move down to a B tier, but for now, giving them an A tier. I think they were very, very active in picking up some big name players. Definitely the two from Melbourne Storm, Nicho Hynes and Dale Finucane. Huge pickups for Cronulla. I think they're going to be a very much improved team for 2022. All right, let's go down. We've got the Gold Coast Titans, who brought in Isaac Liu. Massive signing for them. Paul Turner, yeah, look, not the biggest signing. Aaron Booth and Will Smith. Will Smith's not a bad pickup, but really the only big notable name I'd say is probably Isaac Liu. So that's a bit disappointing when they've lost Tyrone Peachy, Jamal Fogarty, Ash Taylor, Mitch Rain, the Don retired. So I'm actually going to give Gold Coast a D. I think they could have probably looked at signing a few other players. If I was a Titans fan, I'd be disappointed with the players they put together for their 2022 season. I don't think all of it was the right options for them. You know, losing Tyrone Peachy, Jamal Fogarty was a huge loss. I understand they got Toby Sexton, but I just think they could have aimed a bit higher for 2022. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, we're going to move on here to Manly. Manly, I'm putting straight into an E. Reason being, they've got a pretty solid team. They don't really need to recruit. They did bring in Ethan Bullimore from the Broncos, but I mean, they did lose a lot of good talent too. Moses Sully, not the biggest talent, but still a very good player. They lost Curtis Sirenen. That's a huge loss. I mean, they did replace him with Ethan Bullimore, and we have seen what Bullimore can do on the Broncos. But look, I just think they've lost a lot more than they've gained, to be honest. Still have a very good team, so I'm not saying Manly's a bad team by putting them in E. I'm just saying the off-season wasn't the best for them. Melbourne Storm, they got Xavier Coates, Nick Meaney, Josh King, so a few good pickups there. Their losses were pretty big. So lost Josh Adokar, Max King, Dale Finucane, Nicho Hynes, Brenko Lee, and that's pretty much the most notable ones, because you got Aaron Booth, Riley Jacks, Aaron Payne. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but so they did lose a lot of good talent there. They also did sign some pretty good players in, obviously Xavier Coates. Nick Meaney's not a bad player. I think Melbourne are going to do some wonderful things with Nick Meaney and probably Josh King. But for me, they're in the D area. Like, obviously, Storm don't really need to recruit that well because they do have a very good team. But, the players they lost definitely outweigh the players they gained, in my opinion. So Storm, I am putting in D. Sorry, Storm fans, you're probably going to hate me for that. All right, Newcastle Knights signed Dane Gagai and Adam Clune. Couple of good pickups there for the Knights. However, they do lose Blake Green, who obviously retired, Connor Watson, Josh King, Mitchell Pearce, Tex Hoy. Then you've got Shibasaki and Stafford Toa. So I think they've lost a lot more than they've gained. So for me, they're like Melbourne. They're going in the D tier. Now, Dane Gagai, good signing for them. Adam Clune's a good depth signing for them as well. But realistically, they haven't really done much in the off-season to warrant anything higher than a D, in my opinion. All right, North Queensland Cowboys. So they've actually signed some pretty good players. Peter Hiku, Jermaine Tanua-Brown and Chad Townsend. Huge pickups for them, in my opinion. That is going to point them in the right direction. However, they've also lost some pretty big names in Michael Morgan, Justin O'Neill, David Bowen, all retiring. Francis Molo. Then you've got Corey Jensen as well. Both players that played substantial roles in their 17-man squad. Peter Holler, Shane Wright, and Michael Bell. I think the Cowboys have done all right with their signings. I'm actually going to give them a C. Now, it's unfortunate with the retirements here, but like you look at they've lost a few forwards, but they've gained Jermaine Tanua-Brown, who was arguably one of the Warriors' better forwards. Injury did play a part in his stint with the Warriors, but I still definitely think he's a good player. Chad Townsend obviously isn't at the level Michael Morgan was when he was playing, but he's still a quality half. I think the Cowboys have done pretty well with their recruiting. I don't think they qualify for that B tier, but they've definitely improved their lineup for sure. All right, next up we have Parramatta, who signed two players, Bailey Simonson and Mitch Rain. Good pickups for Parramatta. Mitch Rain has got like a pretty bad injury history, so I don't know. Obviously, with Reid Mahoney, he's not going to play a big role for Parramatta in 2022, I don't think, unless Mahoney gets injured. But realistically, other than Blake Ferguson and probably like Joey Lussick, Will Smith, they haven't lost too many big name players. So I think what they've done, I think Bailey Simonson at the moment would be a better player than Blake Ferguson. Blake Ferguson's definitely on a downward spiral. He's heading over to Union now, so Rugby League won't see him next year. But yeah, I think the Eels probably warrant a B, because I think Bailey Simonson can jump straight in that side for Blake Ferguson, help them out a lot. And Mitch Rain is definitely a good coverage player for Reid Mahoney. Other than that, like Will Smith was a utility player, did help them out occasionally, but I think they've definitely got the pieces put together for a good team in 2022. They haven't lost much, and they've gained some quality players. So I'm definitely popping them in B. Next up, we have the Panthers. So the Panthers gained Sean O'Sullivan and Chris Smith. Nothing to write home about. They're not the greatest players. Sean O'Sullivan played with the Broncos, couldn't get a gig there, so he went to the Warriors, struggled to find a spot in their lineup. So now he's going to be a backup player for the Panthers. Don't think we'll see too much of him with Jerome Luai and Nathan Cleary. But yeah, Chris Smith definitely could probably bolster their bench a bit, but not the biggest signings, and their losses are pretty big. Like Matt Burton, Brett Naden, Tavita Pangai Jr., huge losses there. Kurt Catewell's another big one. Paul Morovsky, huge loss, and Tyrone May's a decent loss as well. Like, all those players pretty much played a part in their championship winning team. So I do think that they may struggle a bit. I think they're going to be a top 2 team next year. I think I tip them to make the grand final again. But they're definitely an E for their off-season. They haven't put together much that's going to help the team, and they've had a lot of losses in the off-season with, some pretty big names. But their rookies coming through are probably just as good, or going to be just as good as the players they've lost. So in their off-season, obviously that's why I've got them at E, because they haven't really done anything that's going to help their team. But they're still going to be a good team. Same with Manly, same with Storm. Like, there wasn't much they could do in the off-season. So that's why I've got them there. Next up, we've got the Dragons, who signed Jaden Stewart, Tatoa Moga, Francis Molo, George Burgess. They've also got Moses Mbai, Moses Sully, Jack Gojueski, I can never pronounce that dude's name, and Aaron Woods, which kind of sucks because I'm a Rabbitohs fan and he did play for us. But yeah, Jack. Let's just call him Jack. So they put together some pretty big names like Jaden Sewer, heavy hitter. Francis Molo did a good job for the Cowboys. George Burgess is obviously a good player. Don't know how he's going to fit back into the NRL though after having his stint in the Super League. Is he still going to be that impactful player he was on the Rabbitohs? Who knows? Moses and Bai, definitely a good pickup for them. Moses Sully couldn't really get a start for Manly. He did at the end of the season, but that was due to injuries and stuff. And Aaron Woods is kind of at the end of his career. I definitely think they've recruited well with what they had. They haven't really lost too many big names other than, well, obviously, Karen McInnes, Matt Duffy, Paul Vaughan. But other than that, or Corey Norman retired. Other than that, that's not the biggest losses for them. I do think they've slightly gained better than they've lost, or like Cameron McInnes, and well, he's probably the biggest loss they've had. I suppose you could argue like a Matt Duffy or a Paul Vaughan. I'm going to give the Dragons, I'm going to give them a C tier, but I'm going to give them a high C tier because I think they could be better than... I do think that they could possibly be up to that B tier, so like a C plus, B minus for them. I think that they've recruited quite well with what they sort of had. Corey Norman and probably Cameron McInnes, their biggest losses. Couldn't really help the Corey Norman one as he did retire. But yeah, I think what the Dragons did wasn't too bad. I do think it's going to help them next year. Do I think they're going to be a finals team? I doubt it. But yeah, not bad pickups for them for sure. The Rabbitohs signed, which isn't confirmed yet, Anthony Milford, Isaiah Tass, Michael Cheekham, and Saliva Havili. Now, as a Rabbitohs fan, I'm not disappointed about this. I'm quite happy with the players we recruited in 2022. Anthony Milford, definitely a good pickup for us if he does get cleared. I was probably more over the moon with the Michael Cheekham and Saliva Havili pickups. They're both going to have a pretty big role in the team, I think, eventually. Michael Cheekham could jump into that starting centre role, or we could use him off the bench. However, in saying that, while I am happy with the recruiting, I'm disappointed with the players we've lost. Like, we've lost Adam Reynolds, Jane Sewer, Tutumoga, although you can't really say he's that notable of a loss. Dane Gagai, Braden Burns is a decent loss. Benji Marshall retiring. Patrick Mago, who was a pretty good player. Injuries did interrupt his season a bit. But for the Rabbitohs, I'm going to pop them at D. While I'm happy with the recruiting, they've obviously lost a lot more experience than they've gained. So, yeah, you've got to say that they didn't have a great off-season. I think they did more than Manly and Panthers, for sure. Like, they've got those... the depth sort of players now, but again, like, it's kind of like the Panthers, a bit similar to the Panthers, that we've got a lot of young players coming through, like Lachlan Elias, Blake Taft. Those sort of players are coming through, so I'm not too worried about our future, but I do think we have recruited better than Manly and the Panthers. Next up, we've got the Sydney Roosters, who brought in Connor Watson, Rena Fatoni, Paul Murovsky, and Kevin Nkwama. They've lost a lot of players, though. Like, unfortunately, it wasn't due to their recruitment. It was Jake Friend, Boyd Cordner, Brett Morris, Josh Morris, and Dale Copley all retiring. Isaac Liu has left to go to the Titans, as we spoke about, and Matt Ikuvalu has gone to Cronulla. So, I do think the Roosters have recruited quite well. I'm going to pop them up into the B tier. You can't really blame the Roosters for their retirements. I think other than, those losses, they've done pretty well in the recruitment section. Like, personally, I think Connor Watson's a better pickup than Isaac Liu. Isaac Liu is a good player, great player. But, yeah, I think Connor Watson's a very good pickup there. Paul Momirovski will help with their centre position, as will Kevin Nkwama. So, yeah, I think the Roosters will be fine in 2022. They've picked up some pretty good sort of depth and role players for them. So I think that's a pretty good sign for the Roosters. The Warriors signed some pretty good players, a bit confusing with a few. So Sean Johnson, good pickup. Aaron Penne, he didn't really do much for Storm, but good depth signing, I guess. Jesse Arthurs, who's on loan from Brisbane. And then you got Ash Taylor. So a bit confused about the Ash Taylor. contract. They have upgraded that now, so he's not on a training trial. He is signed for 2022. So a bit confused about that one. I don't think he's really going to play unless they play him off the bench. But the Warriors have a huge amount of halves. I don't really know what they're going to do with them all. So, yeah, we have to wait till 2022, I guess. But their losses are pretty big. Where do we start? Roger, they've lost Peter Hiku, Chad Townsend, Jermaine Tanua-Brown, David Fusatua, Kane Evans. Look, their losses very much outweigh their gains. I'm going to pop them as a D. And you guys are going to be... Warriors fans are probably going to come at me about this and be like, look, I highly disagree with this. We've signed Sean Johnson. We've added Ash Taylor. But, like, I just think for sure the losses the Warriors have had definitely outweighs their gains. Yes, they've gained some pretty good players, but it's kind of like the Rabbitohs. They've lost a lot of experience and haven't really gained much more. Sean Johnson, definitely an experienced player, but then when you take out like Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Chad Townsend, David Fusatua, huge loss in my opinion, David Fusatua. That big losses for them, and I don't really see that as a good off-season. That's just my opinion, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Anyway, then we have the Tigers. Jackson Hastings, good pick up for them. Oliver Gildart, a very, very underrated player in my opinion. I think they did very well to sign him. Tyrone Peachy, another good player. They got Stafford Toa from the Knights. Pretty good pickups. Like they're not too bad. Their losses: Moses Mbai, Billy Walters, Michael Cheekham, Joey Leilua. Then you got like Tom Amone, Zach Sheeny, who signed with the Sharks apparently. James Roberts, who was released, and Russell Packer, who retired. So 2023 is going to look a lot better for them, but for 2022, I'm going to give them a C because I'm pretty impressed with. I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, you don't like Oliver Gildart, but I do think he's really going to impress a lot of you guys in 2022. I think he will definitely fit into the NRL quite well. I think the Tigers were quite smart in recruiting him. Jackson Hastings has been killing it overseas. Hopefully he can come and do that for the Tigers. Tyrone Peachy was a very good pickup. I think they're going to use him as a utility off the bench. They've done pretty well in their recruiting. They definitely haven't done amazingly because, they've lost a few decent players in Moses Mbai, Joey Leilua, but they haven't, they've lost a lot of depth in those roles, but I think they've added enough talent to sort of fix that. So, I like how the Tigers have recruited. I don't think they're a B tier, but I'd definitely keep them in C. Guys, that's pretty much going to wrap it up from me, though. Let me know what you guys did think in the comments. As I said in my last NRL video, guys, we are going to have a lot more NRL content in 2022. So stay tuned for that, guys. Super excited to bring you guys more NRL content. And that's pretty much going to wrap it up from me, though, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this one. And as always, guys, I will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.